To change the oil in your New Holland Boomer 24, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we are going to drain the oil out of that plug. The next step to change the oil filter, we're just going to pull the oil filter right out of here. You can see right there is your oil filter. You're going to need a wrench that fits it. Pull it off of there. Make sure to put a thin film of oil on the new filter before you put it in place. And we're ready for the oil. We're going to put it in 15W40. This is synthetic extreme duty tractor type oil that is recommended by my buddy down at the Car Quest there. He's a guy I went to high school with, so I trust his judgment on such things. Good oil for the tractor. I think in the winter I would probably go with a lighter weight, but for right now this is going to do just fine. This is for the spring changing of the oil, so you might want to go with something a little bit lighter in the winter. You want a total of 5 quarts. I'm going to start with 4. Then I'm going to run it, let the filter fill up, and then I am going to check the oil before I add any of the 5th quart. I like to do that, do the same thing with my 4-day-10. And the reason I do that is just to make sure that I'm not overfilling. And as I've mentioned before, I'll probably put in some of the oil stabilizer. This is the stuff that I get down at Car Quest as well, down where my buddy works. He recommends it. I have it, so I'll use it. Can't hurt anything, but I don't know that it's necessary. Some people would not use this. My father would say that's a gimmick and there's no reason to use it. He's probably right. My dad was a mechanic for his entire life. But for the time being, I'm going to give this a try. Back on top, here we are looking at the engine. Right here's your fill cap. That's the top of the block. I've taken a rag and cleaned it off good. If your engine is really covered with hayseed or mud or anything like that, you're going to want to either use an air compressor and blow it off good or hose it off, whatever you got to do. But you want to do that before you take the cap off because you don't want any debris falling down in that hole. You know, that's obviously that would be bad for the engine. So now I'm ready to take the cap off and we'll see how we make out here. Be careful to keep wiping up the spillage as you go along with a good clean rag. I like to do that because otherwise you are going to smell that for a week and you're going to wonder if there's a leak. Added about 4.5 quarts. I'm going to hold off on the 5th quart, put the cap back on here, check the oil, make sure it looks good on the dipstick. Then I will run it and then add it as needed. Back on the passenger side of the vehicle here, so to speak, we'll look down in here. Right here's your dipstick. That's this thing right here. I don't like the design of it. It's very difficult to get back in, and you'll see why. It is angled so that it can fit in this tight space, but that is what it is. So we'll try and get that out of here. But what I'm going to do, I don't know if you can, it's actually looks good on the dipstick, but I'm going to check the oil, make sure it looks pretty good, that it's in the safe operating range. And then if it's in the safe operating range, see, you can see here it looks like it's almost full. But I'm going to run it, let it fill that little filter up, and then I will add oil as needed. I've only put in 4.5 quarts, just so I can make sure I don't overfill it. Okay, I ran it a little bit. It didn't take all of the 5th quart there, but just so we're clear, that dipstick, to pull it out, that's the way it looks right now. If you pull it out, you're going to pull it and then sort of twist it a little bit as you're lifting it up to get it up out of there. You kind of have to, it's the curved part, when you put it back in there, it curves toward the engine. Put the curve toward the engine so that it's dipping in this way. And then when you get down about 2/3 of the way, you're going to turn it this way to get it in. You could do a separate tutorial just on getting that dipstick in and out. But if that's the biggest problem that we have in changing the oil on this, I am not going to complain very much. Overall, this was not a complicated process, and they did a good job with this tractor, in my opinion. That went in there real easy. So you put that in there. It only took about, I'd say, 4.5 quarts. And it's running close to full. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work it a little bit, keep checking the oil, and I'll add the rest of that 5th quart here in the near future as everything settles out in there, and we should be good to go. That, my friends, is how you change the oil in your new Boomer 24. Today is May 15th. I just changed the oil in the tractor, and it is snowing.